Hey there everyone, welcome, gather round. So by now we've seen pretty much everything the Grim and the Grom has to offer, and frankly this channel's always been about the modding scene anyways, which means it's time for us to take a look at what the modders can use to fill the next, well, half a year's worth of content drought for us. So, what does this new content offer them then as tools? Well, that's exactly what we're going to be taking a look at today, so kick back with a big old glass of milk and let's get right into it.
Wow.
So first up, and perhaps most obviously, are the new models themselves. So before we get started, I should point out that a modding team did figure out how to force new models into the game. This was done by creating assets in Total War Attila, then porting those assets from Total War Attila into Total War Warhammer, and then praying to the Chaos Gods that an existing animation set will work for it. However, given that the series is about 4 years old, and there's almost no custom models even after that's been figured out how to be done, I can pretty safely say that new models aren't really a practical option for most modders still. So I think that playing with the CA assets remains the most practical option for quite some time. Anyways, getting back into it, we don't have a crazy amount of new models, but there are some, and the ones that we got can and will help. So the Troll Hag, to get started, is a great one right out of the gates because the trolls feature in two very large mods, these being Old versus New, where you have the tribe, and Trolls for the Troll King, which is of course all about giving trolls to Throg the Troll King. Apart from that, though, I mean, in general, her model looks pretty damn amazing, and the new animations could be a huge benefit as well, right? Not to mention, she's also not the only troll being added, so there's even more trolls for those mod authors to use, which I think will make a big difference to those two mods that were mentioned. More exciting for me, though, is actually the Lions of Kras. Not only do they look pretty brilliant on their own, their animation set looks really interesting, and I could see them making a really good sort of base to retexture other units upon, which is very frequent in the modding community, right? Lastly, the Rogue Idol does look pretty incredible, however, it seems pretty specific in its use. I really can't imagine anyone else trying to make its model or even its animations work for another unit, although perhaps I'm simply not being creative enough, but for me, again, that one seems pretty one and done. As a quick aside, I know the Spider Shrine mount isn't necessarily a brand new model, however having the animation set might also give a few more toys for the numerous Orky mods out there to play with, including potential variants of it such as lava spiders, pit spiders, and cave spiders to use as well, right? Alright, so second up, and the stuff I'm way more excited for myself, is the new campaign things added in by this, because a lot of them have a ton of utility outside of CA's intended purpose. So let's start with the High Elf stuff. Both of Eltherion's new things have utility, these being the Mist and capturing prisoners. The Mist could be a pretty amazing tool to have for mods that deal with mysterious factions, such as Albion or perhaps Koresh when Game 3 rolls around. That way they can have specific effects for specific territories. And honestly, I know that seems like a really small thing, but imagine, for example, if Chaos armies could change what the effects of Chaos Corruption gave them. Or if Tomb Kings could have additional effects from using the Sandstorms. There's a lot of utility if you take it outside of its intended purpose. It actually interests me more, I would say, as a modding tool than what it does as a gameplay feature. However, getting back into the swing of things, Eltherion's second gameplay mechanic, the imprisonment thing, seems it could have a ton of utility for other factions if modders are so inclined. Taking specific hostages sounds right up the alley for Dark Elves to torture. Or, for example, imagine if Vampire Counts and Vampire Coast could get specific unlocks from capturing and reanimating enemy heroes. Again, there is a ton of potential to use here, like way, way beyond the initial use that CA came up with. And then lastly, I'll just really quickly touch upon Imric. While his mechanics do sound pretty fun to use in the game itself and pretty lore accurate, they don't really seem as though they'll add anything particularly useful for modders to use, seeing as how, as far as I can tell, it seems to essentially just be Norska's monster hunt in practice. Moving back over to our green meanies, I can see Grom's unique food mechanic being used by tons of different factions. So, for example, going back to the tribe that we mentioned earlier, I can already see them potentially using this, or frankly even more lore appropriately within that same mod, the Halflings, because the Halflings are all about cooking. Once again, I could also see other factions using it, but just using it as an entirely different way. Like imagine only being able to raise certain undead units once you've got the right bits and pieces to combine. Or imagine a modder making Throt the Unclean, and you have to use captured materials in order to make or improve your creations. Again, there's a ton of stuff that can be done with the system. However, it's not nearly as much as what the second Greenskin edition can add, that being scrap. This might be my favorite system added in ever. Yeah, I sincerely mean that. I think improving individual troops like this is probably the single greatest feature I've ever seen added to the game, and it's a system that I can see literally every single army using in some capacity. Maybe not calling it scrap specifically, but materials or souls or whatever else is appropriate to that specific faction. Like I said, I'm already super on board with it, even the way CA implemented it. But again, this has the potential to be probably one of the single greatest modding resources to ever come out in a long, long while. Anyways, that's all the stuff I can think of for this particular set of things. I do know that the Blood for the Blood God event should be coming out any day now, which will presumably give us even more things to use. However, given that we don't have any hints about what we can expect for that, there is literally so many options available between heroes, lords, mounts, units, and across basically every single faction that I can think of. There's pretty much zero point in me even trying to look into that until we can at least get some details from CA. Anyways, though, what has you most excited about this DLC? Let me know down below, because I always do like chatting with all you guys. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for this particular video, though. As always, I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.